We've been talking over the last several weeks about the patient's right of access to their medical records. One of the things that I really want to talk about, and I want to make sure this is abundantly clear, we are not trying to set this up to create any kind of fear. We don't want to do that, but we do want to make sure that everybody understands that this is actually a very important topic. That it's worthy of your time and attention. Some of it you may look at and you may think, well, this is really simple. This is actually elementary. It's nothing complicated. These are things that you do, but I will tell you that I've seen where policies kind of get in the way, and sometimes employees are not quite as diligent as they should be when a patient requests their medical records. I've also seen it where, where someone restricts the access because a patient hasn't paid their bill. Those are not acceptable reasons to not provide a patient their medical records, as we've talked about in many of these videos before. But the question that we get a lot from our doctors is, yeah, but what really happens if we don't? What happens if we don't adhere to these rules? What happens if we are slow in our response and we don't respond in a timely manner in providing those medical records when a patient requests them? And the answer is actually that's where the Office of Civil Rights, so it's a governmental office entity, begins an investigation process. And what we have seen is they have actually done a huge number of enforcement actions against providers who are not living up to their responsibilities, especially under the right of access. There is a huge movement for the patient to be able to kind of seize control of their health and their medical history and interoperability. They want to make sure that all of a patient's medical records are quickly and easily transferred to the appropriate healthcare personnel or to other healthcare personnel delivering care to that patient. They want the providers to have the greatest amount of information about that patient to continually better serve that patient, to continually improve the health of the patients here in the United States. And so this is the way that they do it. It's through the Office of Civil Rights. It's actually a simple complaint process. In fact, you can Google it now. My doctor won't give me medical records. What do I do? And you'll see that the top link there is actually gives quick access to a patient who wants to file a complaint against their doctor for not giving them access to their medical records, right? And so this is important. So you're like, okay, well, what happens? Well, actually, again, the Office of Civil Rights gets involved. They do an investigation. And what we have seen time and time again is that they actually levy fines and additional responsibilities on that practice. The fines have ranged everywhere from about $20,000 to several $100,000, depending on the entity, depending on the circumstances. Interestingly, they really don't care. They don't seem to be just going after the larger hospitals or the big systems. But we see time and time again where they're going after smaller practices, DME providers. We've seen them go after dental practices and other small physician practices. Really, there is no discernment on size. So if you're thinking, well, I'm smaller and so I don't have to live up to some of these things, or I don't have enough employees, or whatever the case might be, they're not showing a whole lot of leeway depending on the size of who you are. Again, we've seen it all over from really small to large hospital systems, and know that they do actually handle these cases and they do bring them forward. In fact, in the last 30 days, there have been at least 3 that we've watched across our desk, enforcements by the Office of Civil Rights surrounding right of access or HIPAA violations and a release of information. We'll touch on that in a future video as well, because there's some challenges there that happen from time to time. But know this, the Office of Civil Rights is there. The additional cost is not just those $20,000 or $23,000 fines, but it's actually the plans that you have to put into place and the cost of monitoring and administering those plans and the attorney costs involved in defending these cases. That's where the real cost comes in. Again, we're not telling you this to scare you. We're making sure that you know that this is a real thing, that providing a patient their medical records and not withholding them for any reason, or for not those that are specifically carved out, and they're very narrow, and very seldom are they going to fit into the category of treatment that happens in a chiropractic physician's office. So just adhere to it and move forward. You don't have to worry about any of the enforcement issues and the enforcement actions taken because you have lived up to what's required under the law. We hope this information helps you out, and we'll catch you next week.